This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for individual professional legal advice. The podcast information was carefully compiled from vetted sources and references. However, R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly cannot guarantee that you will not fall victim to a scam. Let's talk about scams. It's the must-listen show for anyone who wants to protect themselves and their loved ones from scams. Every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio, Joyce Petrowski, founder of R.O.S.E, and her guests will provide valuable insights and practical tips on how to recognize and protect yourself from scams. And now, here is your host, Joyce Petrowski.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk About Scams. My name is Brian Watson. I'm a Community Outreach Specialist for R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly, and I'm filling in for Joyce. It's been about 4 or 5 weeks now, and the plan is to have Joyce back next week. So those of you who have been patiently waiting for Joyce's return, the plan is for her to be back next week. I've really enjoyed filling in for Joyce, and I appreciate her giving me the opportunity to host this radio show. So today we have a guest. Today's guest is Martin Hellmer. He is a retired FBI agent, and he's the newest member of the R.O.S.E Advisory Committee. Martin, are you there? We'll just have to wait a second here while Martin's pops up on the screen. Give it a second here. Technology is great, but every now and then we run into little snafus. We had Martin at the top of the show.
Oh,
there he is.
Here I am. Hi, I'm here now.
All right, awesome.
Well, I heard
welcome,
everything
Martin.
you were
Thank
saying,
you
but I guess you couldn't hear me. You're welcome.
Thanks for joining today. All right, let's start out. How long did you work for the FBI, Martin? Oop, it's freezing up. We're gonna have to hold on a second here. Martin's feed has frozen. There you are.
Yep, I'm back. I might need to relocate to make this work better. Let me see if I can find a better spot.
All right, we'll just hold on a second here. Martin will be right back. I had the pleasure of meeting with Martin about a month ago up in Phoenix, and it was very interesting. Our career paths crossed a lot of the same types of cases, and we know a lot of the same people, but we'd actually never met each other because I was based with the IRS in Tucson, and Martin was based with the FBI up in Phoenix. And so we know a lot of people in common. So it was fun going out to lunch and just sharing experiences. All right, how does that sound?
I can hear you good now. I can hear you well.
Okay, cool. Well, let's start from the top. Martin, how long did you work for the FBI?
I was in the FBI for 23 years. I entered the FBI in November 2022 and just retired this last May.
And then you're also a certified public accountant. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I worked as a CPA, worked and practiced as a CPA for 5 years before joining the FBI, and I've maintained my license through the years.
And you were a special agent with the FBI. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And as a special agent, what types of cases did you investigate?
Well, I worked a broad range of cases during the course of my 23 years in the FBI. I started out because I did enter the FBI right after 9/11. I started out working terrorism cases. Every new agent seemed to be assigned to work terrorism matters, and that's what I did, especially in the Washington D.C. field office where I was first assigned. But then I transferred to Phoenix after doing a stint at FBI headquarters. I transferred to Phoenix in 2011, and I worked cybercrimes for about 8 years. I headed up the Arizona Cybercrime Task Force out of the FBI's Phoenix field office, which was a great experience. And then I transferred over to work white collar crime beginning in about 2019. And during that period, it was during that period that I mostly became familiar with a lot of the online scams that I think we're going to talk about today. You know, we touched on a few of them. We investigated several of those types of online scams when I was doing cyber crimes, but really a majority of them that I encountered and that I investigated as a special agent were done in the last 7 or so years of my career working white collar crime.
Well, and that's why it's great that we have you on the advisory committee for R.O.S.E. How did you get connected with R.O.S.E? How did that work out?
Well, I provided a presentation to the FBI Citizens Academy about 5 or so years back. I spoke to the group. Now, the FBI Citizens Academy is a collection of people who go through, in every FBI field office, all of the FBI's field offices, we host a Citizens Academy, and it's usually a group of 30 to 50 people who just want to get to know more about the FBI. So what we do is we host that group for a series of, I think, about 8 classes over a span of 8 weeks. And we just provide them education about the different violations, different programs the FBI works, what we do. We take them up to the shooting range one day. So anyway, 5 years ago or so, I was asked to provide a presentation to the Citizens Academy class going through at the time on white collar crime. And I did so. And afterwards, another advisory board member approached me, and Bill Saturday, and he asked if I'd be willing to talk to Joyce about what I was doing and perhaps partner with R.O.S.E to educate the elderly community. And then I've been associated with R.O.S.E ever since.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, I've got to know Bill as well. He's spoken in my class at U of A. I know Bill and Joyce have known each other for a long time. I like to say that Joyce's superpower is finding people with amazing talent and having them join our team, because we have some superstars that volunteer with R.O.S.E. All right. What is the Internet Crime Complaint Center? People talk about it, but I'd love to hear what it is from an former FBI agent's point of view.
That Crime Complaint Center is actually physically located in West Virginia, but there's a bunch of people who work there whose sole job is to take reports of crime, and there are 2 ways to report crime to the
Martin, you there? It's frozen up. All right. Yeah. Martin, we'll while you unfreeze there, we'll talk about it. So a lot of times when I was a special agent with the IRS, and when I've been working for R.O.S.E for the last 2 years, we tell people, anybody that's lost money on the internet, to file a report with the ic3.gov. So it's the Internet Crime Complaint Center, ic3.gov. And my understanding of it, it is a clearinghouse for anything internet related crime. And because we tell people file a report at ic3.gov and at federaltradecommission.gov. And then I know that this IC3 provides the information for the FBI's elder fraud report. And at R.O.S E, we are big fans of the FBI's elder fraud report because it verifies what our mission is. And at R.O.S E, our mission is to prevent older adults from getting scammed. So every year when I do presentations, I always refer to the FBI's elder fraud report, which is taken by ic3.gov. Martin, you froze up there. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes, I apologize.
Okay. You were talking about the Internet Crime Complaint Center. It's based in West Virginia. It's like a clearinghouse for everything internet-related crime. We want people to report. How do you report if you've been victimized by an internet-related crime? How do you do that? How do you report it?
Well, okay, so to report to the FBI, there are 3 ways. To the Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is either online at ic3.gov, that's the number 3, ic3.gov, or by calling 1-800-CALL-FBI. Both of those means will connect you to the Internet Crime Complaint Center to report a crime. The third option is to just either call or stop by the local FBI field office and report a crime there and ask to see the duty agent.
So what are the most common scams that get reported to IC3?
So every year, the Internet Crime Complaint Center releases an annual report which highlights, details the top crimes reported every year. Unfortunately, since the Internet Crime Complaint Center has been releasing the report, and that's been since 2000, reported crimes anyway, have only been on the uptick. But this year, so the 2024 report was released in May. The number 1 reported crime, online crime, to the Internet Crime Complaint Center was investment fraud. And that's in large part due to a really trending and prevalent scam right now called pig butchering. Second most reported was something we refer to as business email compromise. The third was romance or confidence scams, tech support fraud, and government impersonation scams.
Absolutely. So you mentioned pig butchering, and we've covered that a lot here at R.O.S E. I actually learned about pig butchering about 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago from the R.O.S E website when I was still a federal agent. And I said, what in the world is that? And Joyce had interviewed a psychologist who talked about pig butchering. And I'm like, what are these people talking about? And as soon as I watched the video, it all made sense to me. And I've met victims of it. Please explain what pig butchering is to our listeners and viewers out there.
Sure. First, I think it's important to explain that the criminals who do the pig butchering scam are organized. They work in many cases in big office buildings, usually located overseas, many of them in Southeast Asia. But they're organized and they know exactly what they're doing. It's a very deliberate attack that they perpetrate on people. And usually the way it begins is through a random text message or contact on some social media site from someone who you don't know. And they pretend to be trying to reach out to someone else, very innocently so. And you tell them, in fact, I had one contacting me this weekend. And I knew exactly what it was. It said, "Hi, Linda. This is Raina. I'm coming to Northern Virginia. I happen to have a Northern Virginia number from my time when I was living in the DC area. I'm coming to Northern Virginia. Will you be around?" And if I actually played along. I responded. I said, "No, I don't live there anymore. But what can I help you with?" And "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was Linda." That's the way it starts. And then they maintain a relationship. And that's what Raina was trying to do with me. She was trying to maintain an email relationship or a text message relationship with me.
All right, we're frozen up again. Oh no, I know where he's going with this because um, these professionals out there, yeah, yeah, Martin, you need to be in the same room as the router, wherever that is. I'm gonna let him know that via text here, because we're losing the internet connection. You back?
I'm back. I apologize.
Okay. So our engineer is saying you need to be in the same room as the router if possible. Um, that would be beneficial so we don't lose contact. So I'm just gonna have to I'm gonna have to tell Martin's story. So like he's saying, a lot of these pig butchering contacts are random scams where someone gets a text message and they're nice and they respond like, no, you got the wrong number. Oh, I thought you were Linda. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. And they'll just, if someone's nice, they'll get engaged in a text message um, chain with someone. Um, but it's kind of crazy. Martin's a retired FBI special agent, and he was being targeted for pig butchering over the weekend. Like he said, he was playing along a little bit just to see what they would do. But they're going to reach out to every single one of us. If you haven't gotten one of these random text messages where someone just is trying to start a conversation with you via text, it's you're going to get it. And then what eventually they do is they will bring up the idea, the concept of investing in cryptocurrency. They'll make a mention that, oh, I've made a ton of money via Bitcoin. It's done very well for me. I can retire now. I travel the world. And, we all want to make money. We all want to be successful. And there's a little bit of greed in every one of us. And that's why this pig butchering scam works. It people fall for it. All right, Martin, are you close to the router now?
Yes, I'm closer now.
Okay.
Without going all the way into my daughter's room, I think I'm good now.
Okay. So now we've got to see 3 rooms of your house so far. You have a beautiful place. So, so I was just explaining, you were talking about pig butchering. You started a little innocuous or innocent conversation online with someone, and eventually they suggest the idea of investing in cryptocurrency. Is that how it works?
That is the way it works. They always introduce, after they've established a relationship and confidence of the person who they're targeting, they will ask if that person might be interested in investing in some sort of a crypto investment. And they'll always let them know that, hey, I've already made a bunch of money doing this. And they'll usually present totally fake statements which show that they've made a bunch of profits, but it's all fake. And then, unfortunately, many victims trust what this other person's telling them, and it's a devastating crime to many people who have sent their life savings overseas to these people, trusting that their investments are going toward, crypto investments and making money. But it all ends the same. They are unable to pull out any of the supposed profits. And then eventually the criminal on the other side just stops communicating with the person who they victimized.
Is there any way of getting that money back?
There is, but it's very difficult because most of these scams originate overseas. It's hard for U.S. authorities to repatriate the money, to find the money, first of all, and then get it back to the United States. The FBI and no U.S. Either federal law enforcement agency or local law enforcement agency has jurisdiction to operate outside of the U.S. borders. So we must rely on relationships and treaties with foreign governments where these crimes have occurred, foreign law enforcement. And in many cases, the cooperation just isn't there. If the cooperation is there, it's still difficult because these guys the criminals committing these crimes are good. They take steps to hide themselves, to anonymize themselves online, to make it difficult for law enforcement to find them. So there are all sorts of hurdles to finding the stolen money and getting it back to the United States. Now, we have had some success. The US government has had some success through the years in successfully getting money back to victims. But unfortunately, those cases are rare because of the difficulties I just described.
Well, and that's why I mentioned at the beginning of the show, our mission at R.O.S.E is to prevent people from losing money in the first place. And, it's a tough challenge for us, but we're up for the challenge, and that's what we're trying to do. I mean, just the fact that we're talking about this today will prevent someone from falling for that text message that comes in and they can identify it. So we know it's difficult to get the money back, but why is it still important to report losses?
Well, because I'll talk specifically about reporting losses to the FBI. The FBI has a team of analysts who can connect the dots. So who can put pieces of the puzzle together just with different reports of crime from different people. So while, let's say someone in the Phoenix area might have only lost a small amount of money, say it's, I don't want to say it's $100 that someone lost to a pig butchering scam. So I would still encourage someone to report that to the FBI, because there might be an email address, there might be some phone number, some piece of information included in that report that can help an FBI agent working the overall gang of which that person, that criminal might be a part, solve the crime, find where they are. Maybe that person who stole $100 from the victim here in Phoenix, maybe he or she failed to anonymize himself when he went online one day. And we can find that IP address and trace it back to who did this thing. So we really encourage folks to report the crime.
And then I get this question all the time. Okay, I report to the federal, the federal government. Should I also file a police report in the city or town that I live in?
That's a really good question. And I would recommend that, yes, folks report being victimized to both the local law enforcement agency and to the FBI. Because those two agencies will talk with one another. They'll figure, and there are some times when both agencies will begin investigating a case, but there's usually some deconfliction along the way, and one will take the lead. But in many cases, the FBI, because of limited resources at both the field office level, the investigator level, and at the U.S. Attorney's Office level, the ability to prosecute the crimes, there are limited resources. Local law enforcement agencies, although they also have limited resources, might take smaller cases. So I really encourage folks to report to both agencies.
Is there any reason to report an unsuccessful scam attempt where someone thinks they were the attempted victim of pig butchering, or if someone got a phishing email or a smishing text or some sort of phone call, the grandparent scam, jury scam? Is there any reason for people to report that, or should people only report if they've actually physically lost money?
No, I would encourage folks to report even small things. Now, smishing emails or smishing attempts, phishing emails are very prevalent. They're widespread. So I think the FBI, local law enforcement agencies would be deluged with a barrage of reports if everyone reported every attempt that was made against them. So with discretion, I would encourage folks, maybe they respond to a text or an email. Maybe they begin an interaction, but they're not necessarily victimized. Those sorts of things I would encourage folks to report, because again, it enables analysts and investigators to connect dots.
So we mentioned that pig butchering a lot of times starts with like these random text messages that are meant just to engage someone in a texting conversation. A lot of pig butchering also starts via romance scams, where someone's online and someone reaches out to them on Facebook Messenger or Words with Friends or a dating site, and they start this online relationship. When we went out for lunch, you had talked about meeting a victim of a romance scam, and the person didn't think they were being victimized. Share what you learned interacting with this victim, like the psychology behind it, how deep they were into this scheme where this person didn't believe you, and you were an FBI agent with a badge, and credentials.
Right. So both pig butchering and romance scams are a type of fraud that we refer to as confidence frauds, confidence scams, because the person on the other side who's doing the victimizing establishes the confidence of the victim. So much so that I encountered a few times conversations or counted victims of these types of crimes who, even though I was there, presented my FBI credentials, and I was telling them that they were being scammed, they would not believe me. They were so entrenched in the story, they so believed the story and trusted that the other person was telling them the truth, that they didn't believe me standing right there in their living room telling them that they had been scammed. And the instance that you referenced that we discussed over lunch, this woman had lost over $500,000. She'd said over $500,000 to this person who she had fallen in love with online. She'd never met him in person, but he told her, as it goes with all romance scams, he told her a fantastical story that he had been he was an American, but he'd been in the French Foreign Legion, and he was stuck overseas in Africa, and he needed money. The first thing he needed money for was to pay a hospital bill. Otherwise, they weren't going to discharge him from the hospital. And then he needed taxes to pay the government so that he could get out of the country. Then he needed to pay a fee to get his passport in order. And then he needed money for the plane ticket. And then it goes on and on and on. And she absolutely believed what he was telling her, as far-fetched as it got along the way. So much so that she said, I have a call scheduled with him this afternoon. He is supposed to be making his plane flight to come and see me. Would you like to talk to him? I said, no, you need to stop communicating with this person. This is a waste. This is a scam. He is only taking advantage of you for your money. But she would not believe me. Even when I left that day, she did not believe what I had told her.
Could you go and reach out to a family member or a friend of hers to try to stop her, or was that not possible?
In that case, yes, in fact, we did. After the fact, now it took us a little bit to track down a daughter who she had in the area. We did track down her daughter and let her know what was happening. Now, I don't know what happened from there. But unfortunately, in many of these cases, especially in romance scams, after victims have been bled dry of their money, the criminals start using their victims to unwittingly launder money for them. So when they sense that a victim has no more money to send, they will ask them to be a pass-through through their bank accounts, usually, of money from other romance scam victims to them. So, and unfortunately, these people unwittingly start engaging in money laundering, a crime, when these things happen. And that's what the stage at which this woman was when I spoke to her. And that's what I passed along to her daughter. I let her know, listen, your mother's now unwittingly engaging in a crime. We should do something about this.
Well, and then that's what's referred to as a money mule.
Yes, that's right. We refer to those folks as money mules.
And a lot of times these money mules are committing crimes, but they're also victims at the same time. And so I know a lot of times the federal government doesn't want to prosecute them because they're not really getting much out of it. They might get a little cut or a small kickback or something, but they're being dominated and controlled by the criminal. I know when we were in Southern Arizona, our agencies would go out and talk to these money mules and say, cut it out, you're being the victim. And, a lot of times they would continue that, no, this is my boyfriend, I'm just helping him out. We're going to get married someday, and they have complete control.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was my experience a lot of times when we would run out and have these conversations with the money mules, is that they found it unbelievable that they had been engaged in crime, that they were even being victimized. And you're right that our prosecutors are very, very hesitant to charge these people because they are victims and they've really gotten nothing out of it. I'm aware of a handful of instances in which money mules were prosecuted because they had been warned multiple times.
Now, going back to the pig butchering, where someone entices someone to invest in cryptocurrency and they end up losing all this money, how is the money actually transferred from the victim to the scammer? How is that typically done?
Typically in the pig butchering scam, it's done using cryptocurrency. So the victim will be told to go to a legitimate cryptocurrency exchange, convert their cash to crypto, and then from that exchange, the victim sends their crypto to a wallet controlled by the criminal. In many cases, eventually the criminal convinces the victim to just let the criminal take over their crypto account, and they can just transfer the money on their own. So, but yeah, that's typically how it's done. Are you aware of other ways that it typically happens with
No,
pig butchering scams?
all the pig butchering I've seen has involved people pulling cash out of their bank accounts. They're given a QR code and they're told specifically where to go. They go to a cryptocurrency ATM, they scan the QR code, and they just start feeding in the cash. They think it's their money because, like you said, they're provided fake returns. Sometimes it's a portal. It looks really fancy, like you might have with your financial company, your financial advisor provides you. You think you're making money, and then I always hear part of the scam is they'll refund the money or part of the money to show that it's liquid, and that's part of the confidence game that you talk about, confidence schemes. And then they go in for the kill, and that's why it's called pig butchering, because it's a financial slaughter. They fatten up the pig is the victim, and then they go in for the kill. And it's heartbreaking because, like, the romance scams that we saw 5 or 10 years ago, you could only lose so much money. Now with these very sophisticated pig butchering schemes operated by criminal gangs and enterprises, they can take $1 million from someone, and it's heartbreaking. What is it like as an FBI agent interviewing the victim of a scam? What is that? How is that when dealing with that?
It's in most cases when we're talking about these sorts of scams, confidence scams in particular, it's heartbreaking because these people have been so financially devastated in many cases, yet they don't understand and don't want to believe. Let me put that differently. Not don't want to believe, are unable to believe that they have been victimized because they still believe that the money is going to be coming back to them, that they have not been victimized. So it's heartbreaking.
What? Oh, I'm sorry, Martin. Go ahead.
No, what I was going to say was the ability for these criminal gangs to commit these online scams that we're talking about is really been devastating to a heck of a lot more people than financial scams, which are all these are at their core. used to be. Because if you think about like the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, he was convincing investors to put their money into his hedge fund. And he was doing exactly what these pig butchering scamsters do. He was showing people fake statements which showed that they were making all kinds of money. And every once in a while, he'd let them have a little piece. And that's exactly what the pig butchering scammers do. But in the case of the pig butchering folks, their investor pool isn't limited to just an elite group of people who can hear about it through word of mouth. Their potential group of investors is worldwide. It's whomever they can reach on the internet, which is everyone. I think the latest stat I saw was there's 5 billion people in the world who are online. And how many of those 5 billion people are aware that these scammers are out there and don't know any better, just don't know that there are criminals out there constantly looking to victimize people. I think folks need to change their mindset about the internet when they are online. It's a bad neighborhood, and they need to think of it as such. Just like if they were walking in a bad neighborhood, in any downtown in the United States, or wherever they might be cautious, be aware of where you're going, be aware that there are people looking to take advantage of you.
Wow, I love that analogy. That may appear in a future presentation of mine. I like the bad neighborhood analogy. So one of the main reason why Joyce started R.O.S.E was she had a loved one get roped into a romance scam, and she would not believe that she was being scammed, just like the stories you told here, Mm-hmm. What is your recommendation if you have a family member or friend who you suspect might be being caught up in one of these confidence schemes, romance scam, pig butchering, or some sort of other investment scheme? What do you recommend?
Well, I recommend that, and I fall into this category, that we need to be in contact with our loved ones who are elderly, right? Because most of these scams, the stats show that a majority of the victims of these scams are in the age group that is over 60. So that would include my parents. So I think folks who are aware of these scams, hopefully the people who we're reaching via this show today, are in closer contact with their loved ones who fall into that age category, and they make them aware that they're aware of their online activity, that they educate them about their online activity. I try to do my best with my parents and let them know what's happening online. They just grew up in an era where the internet didn't exist when they were coming up. It's brand new. They're very trusting of the emails and the text messages they receive. But if folks do become aware that their loved ones are being victimized, they need to have heart-to-heart conversations and let them know exactly what's happening. In one case, about 6 months ago, this was right before I left the FBI to retire, a loved one actually contacted us and let us know that a close friend of theirs was being victimized by a romance scam, but that they would not believe their friend. So we actually, another special agent and I went out and visited the victim and let him know, hey, we learned that you might have been the victim of a scam. You need to know that this is in fact a scam. Now, I don't know what happened when we left the house, but we did our best to let him know. So the FBI has and will take steps to let people know that they're being victimized if they won't believe it otherwise from loved ones. That's the whole idea. The FBI and law enforcement want to prevent these crimes from happening before they even occur because of the tremendous challenges that come along with investigating them and bringing the bad guys to justice and getting money back to the victims.
Does the FBI have any statistics on what percentage of these lost funds are recovered and what percentage of scammers get prosecuted? Is that available anywhere online?
That I don't know, Brian. What I do know is that the one stat that I can refer to that's a positive is that the FBI has something called the financial fraud kill chain. So if someone realizes that they've been scammed and can report it to the FBI within the first 48 to 72 hours, whether the money has been wired domestically or overseas, the FBI had something like a 60% success rate in freezing the money and getting it back to its victims if they notified the FBI within that first 48 to 72 hours.
So the key is to be very prompt. Martin, I missed that. What was the name of that program?
The Financial Fraud Kill Chain.
Financial Fraud Kill Chain. Thank you. I learned something new today.
There's a pretty good description of it in the latest IC3 annual report. There's a blurb. It's a relatively short and easy blurb to read. But what it is it's just a confederation of financial institutions, FinCEN, the FBI, and some other federal partners, such that the right people are contacted, the right institutions are contacted when the FBI is notified to implement the financial fraud kill chain.
Right. All right. I want to give you a chance. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to talk about that I didn't ask you about? Anything, scams, scam prevention, stories, whatever you want to share right now.
I think all I'd like to do is just reiterate the point I was making before, which is that people need to be very cautious, aware, and alert when they're online, that that there are criminals lurking online, organized criminal gangs working in office buildings with structures. They have CEOs, COOs, they have people who know how to speak English, to draft the phishing emails, the smishing texts. These people are out there, and please be aware of it. Artificial intelligence, we hear a lot about it nowadays, but what I'd like to highlight about artificial intelligence is it has really democratized criminals' ability to victimize people. In that, number one, phishing emails used to be, and 5-10 years ago, used to be pretty easy to recognize because the people who wrote them were obviously were non-native English speakers. So you could pick out poor grammar, poor punctuation, misspellings, that sort of thing. Anymore with AI, that doesn't happen. AI could draft these phishing emails for people. AI also has given people who don't necessarily know how to code the ability to write code and malware to infect people's computers. So it's really been a game changer for criminals. So it's all the more reason why people need to be aware that when they're online, they need to be very alert and cautious of the emails, the contacts they receive. The good news with all of this is that usually a majority of online crimes, the victims must do something proactive. They've got to click on a link in an email or a text message. They've got to actually go down to the bank and send money. They must do something. They must do something proactive. This stuff doesn't usually just happen to people. That does happen in some cases, but a majority of online crimes, they are preventable by us who are online just taking a pause, thinking about what's happening.
Awesome. Great advice, Martin. Before we go, I just want to remind everybody to go to our website, roseadvocacy.org. Please sign up for our mailing list. You'll get an email once a month. And then we also have tips that come out on Tuesday. This is free. I hope you love it. Sign up. All we need is your first and last name and your email address. If you like it, share it with your family and friends. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. We won't be offended. Please follow us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn, watch this podcast. Like I said, next week, Joyce should be back. And I'm pretty sure she's going to want to have Martin on again in the future, because we only touched, the surface of all the different scams out there. And it's great to have the perspective of someone who was very recently in federal law enforcement investigating these types of crimes. Think about sponsoring an event. We go out and do face-to-face presentations, and we charge a nominal fee, but we think we provide a great service. We have some great handouts. It could be me out there. It could be Joyce. It could be Bill, Paige. It could be Martin. Somebody from the amazing R.O.S.E team will be out there to share all this good advice that we have. So thank you for watching today. Martin, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you soon next time I'm up in Phoenix. Everybody out there today, thank you for watching Let's Talk About Scams. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Well, that's all the knowledge for this episode. Tune in every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio at k4hd.com as Joyce explores a variety of knowledge so you have the power to make scam protection your healthy habit. And until then, feel free to reach out to Joyce and let's talk about scams.